Welcome back. This is Social Listening, and this is where we analyze top trends making the headlines across social media. My name is Elizabeth Musa, and joining me in the studio this morning is Stephen Onyekwelu, our in-house analyst. Thank you for joining us, Steve.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you in the studio with us. To begin with this morning, the Honest Bunch co-host Nedu Wazobia is still trending as the management of the podcast has denied Mr. Nigeria Ugo Nwokolo's claims of manipulation during his controversial interview on the podcast. Nwokolo, who is the current Mr. Nigeria title holder, had received backlash after revealing on the podcast that he was more attracted to poor girls, adding that the less money a woman has, the more attracted he feels to her. Following public outrage and the recent resignation of Honest Bunch co-host Nedu Wazobia, Nwokolo made a U-turn and claimed that he had been coerced into making the remarks by Nedu of Wazobia. I don't know if you have the video, but let's just see how people are reacting to this conversation on social media. Wow. Adedayo says, grown-up man being manipulated to say what he can't stand by. You are the problem here, not Nedu. Nedu really doesn't owe you all anything, especially Lucky Udu. There's a lot of background to this, but I'll come to that. Let's see more reactions. I am Pelumi says, Ugo Nwokolo, you are a discovery yourself. You paid 5 million to say poor girls don't turn you on. A full-grown man. That's from Pelumi. James said, Omo, the end of Honest Bunch is here. That show won't have any value again. VDM versus Nedu Saga brought all of the secret out. Should I say VDM shuts down Honest Bunch podcast? And that's a question from James. Nathan B says, you paid 5 million naira to say what you said, not that you were paid for saying those things. So what were the gains of saying those things? What were the benefits to come after saying those things? I doubt this story. Firstly, Mr. Stephen, do you know, like, just so that do you know the background to this story?
So the background is this Nwokolo appears on the Honest Bunch podcast, and give us the background anyway. But what I have now is the news that is trending.
What you have is let me give you a little bit of a background. So Ugo Nwokolo is the Mr. Nigeria. Current holder of that title, and it comes on the Honest Bunch podcast, which we know, just like I like to say, Honest Bunch, they get honest. They make some controversial punchlines that tend to make it to Insta blog, tend to make it on to make virality, on social media, because they always want to look towards a key viral moment that they can make their guests have. So one thing that we know on the Honest Bond podcast is people always say that it's like they don't know what they say to people that just make them drop some kind of bomb that you were not expecting. Is it the way the interviewers, is it the way they probe you? Is it the way they go about it? Because it seems like even the most quiet person goes on the Honest Bond podcast and then they just start revealing their life secrets. So Ugo Nwokolo did mention on the podcast when he was a guest, when Nedu was still on, and he said that he's attracted to poor girls. He likes poor girls. The poorer you are, the more attracted he is to you. And that made the rounds on social media. Of course, some people were dragging him, saying like, what kind of man says that they are attracted to poor girls? What kind of man, all of that stuff. Now, in recent time, Nedu has come under fire. So many attacks to his personality. They had an interview with D1 of Big Brother. So there have been so many attacks towards his personality and just some interesting detail. So Nedu took a step back and said, you know what, he's backing. He's leaving the Honest Pod. In his words, he's stepping aside for a bit, according to him. So he says stepping aside for a bit, that it's not anything, but it's just that the attacks have gotten too personal and all of that stuff. So he steps aside for a bit. There have been comments on social media. There have been allegedly reports that, they sacked him, that the Honest Bunch podcast sacked him. He didn't take a step aside. Although he has come out yesterday to say, you know what, I wasn't sacked. I actually decided to take a step aside from podcast and all of that stuff. But now Glitch Africa, which happens to be the producers of Honest Bunch podcast, have said that, you know what, it's not only Honest Bunch podcast that we produce. We produce Honest Bunch podcast. We produce Bad and Bougie podcast, which is Tolani Badge and what's her name, Moe Abebe, radio personality. They produce a number of podcasts, and we have the it's our own, at our discretion that we choose our host. It's our discretion we choose our guests and
Definitely.
all of that stuff.
Man,
so
they
they say it's their podcast, it's their thing. So, and they do all of that production. So it's not even only Honest Bunch. It's just that Honest Bunch seems to have that virality. Now, Umokolo, in light of Nedu having been making the rounds, for some time now because of the virality and the drags that have been coming, the dragging that he has been getting, especially for some of the things he had said on the podcast, some of the things he had done. So it seemed like a good time, supposedly, for Ugo Nwokolo to come and say his own side of the story. Because I've even forgotten about Ugo Nwokolo. I don't watch the Honest Bunch podcast, to be honest. I see clips on social media. I won't even lie to you that I really click on links from the Honest Bunch podcast. I just know that I always just know that one person, Mr. Steve, goes on Honest Bunch podcast and he says things that he's not meant to say.
Yeah.
So Ugo Nwokolo grants an interview to Lucky Udu. Lucky Udu is another, I don't know whether to call him a podcaster, but it's a video. It makes videos just of anything. So Lucky Udu grants Ugo Nwokolo an interview, and Ugo Nwokolo says that even that he wants to say his side of the story of when he went on Honest Bunch podcast, saying that all the things he said was because he was coerced to say them. He was manipulated. That he had reached out, and having won Mr. Nigeria, he was going to represent Nigeria on a global stage. So he wanted to get some sort of promotion. And you know how when people are looking for PR, they're looking for what's the best place I can go to that will give me all that attention? What's the best place I can go to that will give me, that's reach, that make me more seen? Because I could tell you, Mr. Steve is in a podcast, like, who's gonna see me at that point? I'm saying at the moment. So he decides that okay, you know what, Honest Bunch, and he reaches out to Nedu. Nedu told him, this is according to Mr. Ugo. Nedu tells him that I am the owner of Honest Bunch podcast. So Nedu tells him he's the owner of Honest Bunch podcast and tells him to pay 5 million naira to be on the podcast, blah blah blah. And then he was a little bit shocked. Oh, that's another side of the story. So then he paid the 5 million naira, and then he thinks he will control the narrative. But Nedu decides to control the narrative and tell him that, so you were going to come. Okay, so he said he wanted to come and talk about, is it hunger? I don't want to say what I'm not so sure. But it was more of a serious topic. He said he wanted to come and talk about, maybe relieving hunger. I can't remember, but a more serious topic. But Nedu told him, he said, and I quote, Nedu sent him a voice note in local parlance, pidgin English, saying, Oga, that thing no go work, that thing we go no one talk about. Yeah, sure. No one's going to watch. Yeah. So you better come. This is what we're going to talk about. So he said it was a bit taken aback, because that's not his area. That's not what he wanted to come on a podcast to talk about. He wanted to discuss, but he trusted Nedu's discretion, because Nedu is someone that he also looks up to in the industry. I mean, Nedu has been in this industry for a long time. Sure. Forget that he's doing Honest Bunch, or forget that he's doing. That's what he has chosen to be, his own cash cow, or his own means of blowing. It's not everybody has this moral compass that says, oh, there's some things regardless that I'm not going to do.
Sure.
So it's a podcast, whether I like it or not. I can't take away his skill. He's very skilled, because he knows how to ask the questions. Yes, now we're getting this behind the scenes, saying these are the things going on behind. So he says, Nedu tells him, and this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, and he's like, hey, talk about women, that's not my own this thing. And tells him, and you have to say this, you have to say that, this is what will blow up. So it's literally Nedu crafting
interesting,
the way he's going to, how he's going to respond. This is what you would say, these are the things that will blow. And then truthfully, you look at it as the person thinking, oh really, I know the virality of this podcast. I know how people come on this podcast. There's nobody that comes on that podcast. It will sort of blow. So he will have I won't blame him if he takes that feedback and says, okay, as much as I don't want to come and talk about prostitution, say it was me, is thinking, if Nedu says, oh yeah, should as much as this
that's
money,
what's go
as much
viral.
if this is what's going to go viral, oh let me say it, but it's not really. Do I really want to talk? But he says to him, you must say this, you will say this. This is why you say it. This is what he said.
No.
So what he's saying is that all of that, I'm attracted to poor girls. It was not that he wanted to say it. What he's saying is that it was according to the agreement he's had with Nedu, based off of the conversation. Oh, I didn't even mention to you that he had wanted to back off, and Nedu had mentioned to him that he had already used the money to pay off the staff, his workers. Because remember I told you that he had mentioned that Nedu said he owns the podcast. So he said he has paid off the money. Okay, he said even a day before, Nedu had informed him that, someone else is going to join on the podcast. I was like, how is someone else joining on the podcast now? I paid 5 million. For 5 million is not small money these days now. That's someone who come. So you are thinking, 5 million, it's me. Yeah. It's me and me, an exclusive. And he says, Nedu says, no, don't worry, just to make it sweet and all of that. So we're a lot of back and forth, because saying, this one is not part of the plan. Back and forth. Nedu eventually gives him, I think, returns 2 million. So it meant 3 million, just so that we move on. So, but when he had come that day and he was saying, you must say this, you have to say this is how you answer.
But that's so
he said, maybe I'm not doing it again, give me back my money. And Nedu says, no, we've used the money to pay off the workers and all of that. So he said that's why he had to do it. That's why I had to go. But when I watched that episode, like I said, I don't watch. When I watched the clip of that part, because I had to do that for this interview. When I watched the clip of that part of his interview, it didn't look like he was under duress or under. But I don't expect him to look that way anyway, if it was an agreement. But people are coming to drag him, saying, no, you cannot say anyone forced you to come and say what you don't want to on the podcast. You had the option of saying you're not doing anymore. But really, according to him, he said he didn't want to. But when you think about your money, you just think, let me do it. Yeah. So we don't really know what transpired. We don't know if truly that's what Nedu said. But really, there's no smoke without fire. With all the things happening with Nedu, and when you think about the fact that podcast always goes viral, though, each and every time. So the questions that we used to ask about, what do they do to these people that when they come on this podcast, they tend to say things that you are wondering, who's asked you to say this thing? So, but with this revelation by Mr. Ugo, Mr. Nigeria, it might seem like, okay, could those be the things that go on behind the scenes? So that's what's going on right now with Honest Bunch.
Would he claim that there are two sides to the coin as usual, right? So there's the production part, and you trust the professionals to guide you through the communication process. Okay, so and then they prepare maybe talking points for you. I mean, this happens all the time, but it's up to you. I mean, you're paying, and it's up to you to detect the terms. Okay, if then there are some talking points you don't want to address, you can say, no, I don't want to address this. And what's even the money? So then it's about character and integrity. So you can't walk away from the money. The money you paid. We don't even know whether he was really coerced into saying that or manipulated into saying the things he said. It's probably because of the backlash he's getting. Suppose he went viral, would he have come out again to say, oh no, these things that are going viral? Actually, I was coerced to say I was manipulated to say them. But because there's this negative backlash, then he's coming out to make these claims.
And the annoying part is that is getting more backlash now after doing this.
Yes, now because some
people
are
saying to him,
what's even the point?
Some people said, how can you be fine and you don't have sense? Some people, they're just really dragging. I really feel for him, because in the case that this was actually true, if this was actually true that that Nedu actually told him to do all of these things, I don't know. Really, we don't want to be in situations where I don't like to make judgments in it. We don't really want to be in situations where we're just maybe. In this case, you can't really say left without a choice, because you could actually say you're not doing, but maybe you're just thinking, my money will just waste like that. Did I just do, like your rapper will say, did I just do Sarah? Like, did I just dash this was in my 3M? You know what it is to do? 3M now will add money to buy one car, and you're like, so you're like, so it might be that, really. And it could also be that, I don't know, really, but those are the situations. But about the Honest Bond podcast, Nedu has come to say, He didn't step aside though. No, he wasn't. He
He wasn't
wasn't
asked
sacked
to
though. He
leave.
wasn't.
Yeah.
He was the one that decided to step aside. But I don't know what's going to be of the Honest Bond podcast after now, because it seems like Nedu was really a very key prominent part of that podcast. I mean, I think there were three. It was like the face, because there's a way he asks you a question. So you may say, it's like you will find yourself saying more. So people are saying, well, is this the beginning of the end of the Honest podcast? Honest Bunch podcast, is there still going to be something? And apparently it was supposed to go on a London tour or something, but I don't know what's going to happen about with that now. But yeah, that's what's going on with the Honest Bunch podcast, Mr. Ogo Okolo, all of that. I think that the year 2025 has started off very dramatic. A lot of things happening.
So
from
many dramas,
to Two-Face, to this, to that, so many things. And we're just in February. Would you believe it? It looks like we've gone deep into the year with some of the things happening. But let me just, what are your final thoughts for Honest Bunch podcast? What do you think?
Well, since they thrive in virality, they might find a way. This is about crisis. This is a crisis now. So this will speak to their even crisis management. Yeah. So they can turn this around. It can become a spin for them. But again,
what can they spin?
Well, I don't know what expertise they have in-house, or they can even employ or outsource. But it's the media, and the viewers can also be fickle, right? So, but it depends on how you spin the narrative, and I think that's their area really. They should find a way of dealing with it. It's crisis and they have to manage it. But I think this is a lesson for him. Whatever happened. The thing about integrity is also it's a journey, right? We're not born. We're not born.
I love that.
Yes, yeah. We're not born to. So nobody's born that good, perfect person. So experiences build you and shape you. So with what he's experiencing now, whatever happened in the back doors, he will learn from them. I'm like, okay, the next time I would avoid this. I will do that. I won't do that. I suppose it was coerced. Well, next time he knows. Oh, maybe I should have walked out with the money, and maybe even I've gone to another media house to say, hey, see what happened here. There are all kinds of things you can do. After it's in the show business, you should know how to also do this perception management thing. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I can say because we don't have all the information. But that was good morning going around.
At this point, you are thinking, so Mr. Steven, I'm looking at you like with one side of my eyes now, like, wait, is Mr. Steven maybe Honest Bunch, maybe you need to find Mr. Steven on your podcast. It's going to be the one part of the bunch. You have a new host now, Steven Oyekelu. I won't be shocked tomorrow if I see Revelation. We have a new.
Yes, unveiling.
Look like Nedu. You look.
Oh, I can see. So they're unveiling.
You just say unveiling new host because now you're already calculating the money.
The money going around.
So there's a lot of money going around. Your thoughts, I'm not even thinking about money yet. So maybe you want to consider being on the podcast?
Oh no, for integrity, for the sake of my integrity.
You'll just use your journalism skills to get the answers that no one was expecting. Get the scoop.
Yeah.
You just use your you're not going to find yourself. Like you said, integrity is a journey, and I think you've come a long way in your journey. So I don't think, but this one that you are talking about, a lot of money going around. I'm now thinking now that maybe at that point you might backtrack a little.
No. I mean, I'm just being honest here. When you do it for the money, you should be ready for all kinds of things that can happen.
Well, that's as much as we can take this morning on the social listening segment. Thank you very much, Mr. Steven, for your time with us today.
Thank you, Lizzie.
I will speak with you again on Monday. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Keep watching Business Day Television.